What's up, guys? It's Coeval again. I've got another game for you, a 60G between myself and Black Knight. As you can see, they're going to use Full Blood. Full Blood is a recently popular book because of a lot of recent changes. A few of the main ones being Mist now heals 10 per turn instead of damaging 10 per turn, and you have to be level 3 familiar to use Mist, whereas before you could just use it, anyone could use it, you didn't need Full Blood. Also at max familiar level, all blood spells apply a bleed that does 10 damage a turn for 5 turns at max, and at level 1 it's 2 damage a turn, level 2, 4, level 3, 6, etc. all the way up until you go to level 5. And then if you use a blood spell on a player that's already bleeding, then their cooldown for the bleed just refreshes. So like if I use Craze on a person who's been bleeding for 2 turns, then they're going to bleed for the next 5 turns. So it just refreshes that cooldown. So let's jump right into the game now that you've got a little bit of a overview of some of the recent changes to Blood, and it'll be pretty cool to see how one of the top 60 Grassy players plays this. So let's get started. So starting off, because he has Full Blood, I know he doesn't have Flight. Besides that, I'm not sure what he has. He decides to go full familiar off the rip. Probably a good choice with this build. Although I'm not 100% sure, I haven't really played Full Blood that much. So he decides to open with the tower, and I'm thinking, from what I know about Full Blood, if you let them get a Gargout, Totem, Bank, Vampire, they get all those minions set up, you're screwed. And so I'm thinking about that, and I'm going, I just have to keep pressure on him turn after turn, not let him get more than 1 minion out. And so typically in 60G you just find a safe place to summon a swarm, but I thought, you know what, I know he doesn't have Flight, and I can get a little bit of a cushion from a protection shield. He can't deflight me that easily. And I thought Swarm was just kind of slow. I always thought I could just summon it later. Let me just get Flight and Prod up so that I can easily, pebble that tower down. So that's why I chose to do Prod instead of Swarm. It doesn't mean I won't summon a Swarm ever, it just means that I didn't want to open with a T1. Because you don't want him to just sit in the tower and just summon minions over and over and over and over. That's one of the strengths of Blood, is that if they get a minion advantage, you're really going to be hurting. So I'm trying to rush him. I don't care about the bank, because he's not doing damage to me, and he doesn't really have high damage spells right now that he can do at turn 3. And he pulls out the Fortress, and I'm like, okay, interesting. One of the recent changes to Fortress is that it has damage reduction. So I can't just pebble the Fortress, it's going to do half damage. I'd have to pebble it twice. I believe that's how it works. Or at the very least, its damage it's a much stronger tower, so it's very difficult to detower him. It's going to take multiple turns. Why it's good with Full Blood is for those reasons that I just mentioned, because if you allow them to get multiple minions out, it's very easy to get overwhelmed and then just be lost by turn 10, turn 15. So he pulls out the Fortress, and I'm thinking, okay, now might be a good time for a Swarm. If he summons a minion, I can always fly back over to him, kill the minion, chip him down with the Swarm every turn. Just chip away at that Fortress. So I go over to the side here, and I'm thinking, okay, let me go down to the bottom, to the very side, and summon a minion or something. But then I'm like, I don't know if he has Tree. If he has Tree, he trees me on the side, and I'm totally screwed. I'm going to take multiple turns to flash out of that. Meanwhile, he's getting all these minions set up, So I decide to stay on the top, summon the swarm. I Ice Shield there because I know he has bones soon, and I just want to protect from that and make sure that I can keep my minions alive. And this kind of goes along with the principle that Nick Ray talks about in his videos. You don't want to just go all the way to the bottom edge of the map and give up all your map control. In very rare cases will you want to do that. You want to try to stay on the top to compete for the top control as long as you can. So that's a decision that I make here that I think is a good one. So I developed Swarm, and then he pulls out Mist, which is a great move because he's not leaving that fortress anytime soon, and he's healing 10 every single turn. And you'll see how that comes to really benefit him over the course of this game. But I have nothing to... I can't detower him quickly or anything like that. So it was a great move by him, and now I just have to keep developing minions. So what he does there is he uses Blood Siphon, which is also another addition I forgot to mention in the Blood Book. So Blood Siphon will do 25 damage to all minions, even the opponent's minions, which is a great swarm counter, or at least swarm nullifier. I mean, it's going to kill your own swarm too if you have it. But one of the great things about Blood Siphon is that in the Blood Book, like, Blood users are not going to be using swarms. They have all these minions that are over 25 health, Bank, Vampire, Garg, so they can use Siphon and counter people who use meta. All of their minions will still be alive. Say I had 3 swarms out, all of them would be dead. So that's a massive tempo advantage for full blood against like meta users like the book that I'm using right now, which is pretty meta. Notice too that it damages his own minions, and since he's full familiar, it's going to apply a 10-tick bleed to that blood bank, which is right there, that little icon. I'm not sure if it should apply to a bleed to your own minions, but I don't know. Blood is pretty strong, so I wouldn't really propose like making moves that are gonna make it even more overpowered. You don't want to do that right now, because a lot of the complaints in the community have been that it's pretty OP, at least against most meta 60G books. So I'm thinking here, do I go and lust him? I decide not to. I can just Garg, morph the Garg under the Ice Shield and then prevent bones, because I'm safe. And he actually goes for it, which is great for me, because I knew that the Garg was safe there. And you see the screen move like really slow. There's a glitch. A lot of you guys may know about this, but the one bone will just like very slowly fall on the screen. And so it takes a long time for the animation to finish. So anyway, I protect the Garg, he goes for the bones, and now the Garg is morphed, so it gained HP to 40 and then took 10 from the bleed. Now I'm thinking it's a good time to go and lust him, apply some pressure. And one thing you'll notice that's kind of crazy, look at his health. 250. Just because he pulled out this really innovative strategy that I didn't think of. Pop a fortress early on. Most people who are running 60G books are not going to have the tools to detower a fortress easily. It's just difficult, period. So he's just sitting there gaining health every 10 HP every turn. And he gets all the way back up to 250. So it's like I'm playing in an Elementals game, and he's 250 and he has full blood, except I don't have an Elementals book. So yeah, good plays by him. And now the game continues. He decides to just tower again. He's trying to, I think, get into a spot where he can just develop minions. Problem is, I can just blast from the past out, pebble him. So I'm just continuing to apply pressure, not allowing him to develop any minions, which is the main strength of the Blood Book. he decides to get some chip damage on me with the Flesh Wound, does 25, plus 10 bleed every turn for the next 5 turns. And I go down here, and I'm going to try a Flash, and you're thinking, well, Coeval, shouldn't you know that, he's got Glide on? You idiot. He's just going to fly back to the map and not get knocked. Well, I've seen a couple people do this, I think Trash, and Usman did this to me last game too, where you flash the player to the left or right, but in this case the left, and you try to flash them past the border, and then they come back and they're on the side. So I wanted to see if I could get him on the side of the map, because I know his tower's down. He doesn't have a lot to do. If I get him on the side and I have flight, it's very easy for me to get down there, sink him, and I know that he doesn't have gate at this point too, because he's got Glide, Castle, and then Rock Slab and Fortress. So he has no gate, so that would have been really good for me. Unfortunately, I barely miss, and he's able to stay on top, continue to vie for top control. So he chooses to Glide here, and he is about to kill this Garg, I believe. He goes for the Craze, and I don't quite remember what I chose to do in this position. I think I'm going to DK stuff, and he doesn't have gate again, so I'm thinking I have no idea what he's going to do here. He has no gate, so he's just lost. So I'm like, good game at this point. So he pulls out the Bloodbath, and even after he casts this, I'm like, what is he doing? I can just charge after. And then I realize, nope, I can't charge after. He actually stuns the Dark Knight, which pretty much allows him to, like, I can't charge with the Dark Knight now that it's stunned. And so he gets an extra turn to figure out how to deal with the Dark Knight. Problem is, he's stunned too. So I decide to Ice Shield down here and then trap him with the Garg. And he's stunned, so he can't move. He can't gate because he doesn't have gate. So he pretty much has to go for the bones. And unfortunately, only one bone hits and the rest bounce off. And so I thought about this for a while. I don't think he has another move that saves him, because the problem is that he's stunned. Like, if he wasn't stunned, he could walk and come and hug me, and then Craze. I'd kill the Garg and kill the Dark Knight. I tested that in Sandbox, and that would have been a pretty good move, but the problem is, yeah, he can't move. So he has very limited options at this point. So, I don't know, it leads me to wonder, like, is Glide, Floating Castle, Rock Slab, Fortress really that good? I don't know. Fortress is good, but I'm not having gate. If they just stuff you with Dark Knight, are you pretty much lost completely? Because if they don't stuff you, obviously you just Craze the Dark Knight, you're winning. There's nothing that the opponent can do. You just killed their biggest win con, the Dark Knight, and now you have all these tools, Infection, Garg, Flesh Wound to damage them. But if you just trap them, Bloodbook doesn't have Blast from the Past, doesn't have Flight, doesn't have Gate. At least this one doesn't have Gate. So anyway, yeah, there are some variations of the Bloodbook that you can bring Gate in, but he decided to try out the one without Gate, and unfortunately, because I hugged him with the trap, it didn't quite work out. And so because the DK's at 10, I'm actually able to charge through, and I do take myself for a little bit of damage, but I ended up living with 177 health, and we get the win. Anyway, that's about it for this game. Trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to cover. I guess the takeaway, if you're a new player or relatively new to Arcanists 2, because Blood was not in the original, just as a general strategy, try not to allow the setup for full Blood, because, as I mentioned a couple of times, if they get 3-4 minions, and then they start to be able to create space with a totem to let their Gargs, escape to the top, free from any bones or any other, ice shields that you have used to try to trap the minions, there's no way to gain momentum. You're just going to be getting squeezed the whole game. So just be aware to not allow setup. And just keep the pressure. Notice I was making sure every turn to not allow him to get a minion up and create a minion advantage. In hindsight, I think it was a pretty well played game by him. I think the limitation was mainly that he doesn't have gate. I'm thinking about maybe he could have started with a side hide, but even when I'm flight prodded with 50, there's no chance for him to sink because Blood Craze doesn't go through prot anymore. So it would still be difficult for him even if he jumped to the side in the beginning and towered. You might need like tree. I'd maybe bring tree gate and like blast from the past instead of a glide setup. Just to give yourself, like if I'm playing full blood, just to give yourself that room or an opportunity to make a setup and just gain that minion advantage. And if you're treed on the side, you're blocked from aerials. Maybe they can aura, but then you can respond with your mist to keep your minions up. So that might be how I would choose to play full blood. But anyway, guys, we get that win. Thanks to Black Knight for the game, and that's about it for this game. I'll see you guys later. Peace.